Hey everyone, Casey here. Welcome to In Session with Casey Armins, a new podcast where we dive deep into the heart of the legal system. Along with my co-host, Reese Ellis, and an incredible lineup of guests, we'll tackle everything from personal injury to criminal defense. Together, we'll explore culturally relevant issues, revisit landmark cases, and share the real stories behind the verdicts, the people impacted by the law, and those fighting to bring them to justice.
Welcome back, everybody, to In Session. It's been a couple weeks, but we're back. We're doing audio right now because we're in the process of renovating the podcast studio, and until it's pretty enough for everyone to look at, we're going to do some audio episodes.
Well, Reese, good to see you. It's been, like you say, a couple weeks, but good to be back in studio and recording again.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about personal injury law, PI law.
You know, when I started, we talked about my history and how I ended up doing what I do. But I think from the moment I signed up my first injury case, I kind of knew that it was a passion of mine, and it's fun to do criminal defense and fight for people who are accused of crimes, but it's also satisfying to wear the white hat and help someone who's been injured by someone else and square off against insurance companies and tortfeasors and people who, do things carelessly and cause real pain, physical and emotional and mental pain to others, and be able to pursue a claim on their behalf. And so I really have enjoyed that side of my practice. And as the years have gone by, it's become the primary thing I do.
And Puget Law Group has grown a lot in this area. I know just from doing some media work with you guys that we've significantly been pushing a lot of the personal injury stuff too. So I kind of wanted to get in today about the first 72 hours after someone's been in an accident. So how much of a personal injury case is won or lost in the first 72 hours?
I think honestly, some of that stuff is for folks to make a quick decision and get a lawyer in their corner right away, because attorneys want the case just because it's a business and they want to sign up new clients and new cases. What I always tell people, because I try to do the opposite, I want to be patient and ethical. And so what I tell people is, hey, the most important thing is to focus on your health and your recovery. Go to the doctor, get checked out. If there's issues or there's going to be ongoing issues, make sure that you get referrals to the providers that you'll need to get yourself back, hopefully to where you were before the accident happened. So breaking it down in the first 72 hours, probably the most important thing is to, let's just make it easy, right? You get in a car accident, pull over. If the other driver's there, if you're not catastrophically injured, take pictures, talk to the other driver, exchange information. And then if you are injured and it's pretty substantial, then call an ambulance or have somebody drive you to the doctor. And you want to make sure that if you're injured, you're documenting those injuries, because that's something people don't know is, they'll say, oh, my neck's been killing me for a month. And I'll go, of course, I'm sorry to hear that, but have you seen a doctor? Because if you haven't, then there's no paper trail to suggest that you were actually injured. And that's what the defense will latch onto, is they'll say, oh, well, obviously he or she wasn't injured because they didn't go see a doctor. And so focus on your physical health from the get-go, exchange the information. And then usually, if you're insured, one of the requirements of your own insurance is to let your own insurance company know that you've been involved in a collision. So it's definitely a good idea to reach out to your own insurance company and let them know. And I would say within a few days, once you kind of get a feel for your health and the direction of everything, that's when it probably makes sense to think about talking to a lawyer, because what's going to happen is the other side's insurance company is going to start reaching out to you, and they're going to try to, give you a fast settlement, right? They're going to say, oh, we'll give you a couple grand for your injuries and sign here, and they'll send you one check, and then they'll close the file. And that will, in all likelihood, mean the end of your personal injury claim. So in those first 72 hours, focus on your health, call a good personal injury lawyer with a good reputation, and get things rolling. But don't feel this like immediate pressure that, like, while you're on the side of the road after a collision, that you need to call a lawyer.
My next question was going to be, what is delayed treatment due to a claim? But that makes sense. Take care of yourself first.
Yep.
Because the defense, that is one of the things you can do early on, because the defense will use that. That's like one of the primary things to focus on in the beginning.
Yeah, because let's assume, most of my cases, liability is not in question. So my client's walking in the crosswalk and gets hit by a car, pretty much unquestionably, it's going to be that driver's fault that hits you. You're stopped at a red light and someone rear ends you, or you're in traffic and they rear end you. Pretty much any rear end case is going to be 100% liability for the person who hit you. And so that part's easy. That's not going to be disputed. And so the defense at some level doesn't have a lot to work with, because they know that their driver hit you and injured you. But what they're going to try to do is chisel down the extent of the injuries and make the pretty asinine claim, from my perspective, that my client is malingering. They're faking their injuries, or they're over treating is a term they'll use. And one of the ways that they really latch on to that alleged argument is by looking for what they call gaps in treatment. So why did you not go to the doctor for 2 weeks? Why did you take a 1 month break? It might be that you were going on a vacation. It might be that, you had a family issue. It might be that your job wouldn't let you take any time off to go to the doctor, because doctors, like most of us who work 9-to-5ers, are only open from 9 to 5. And if you don't have accrued vacation, or you don't have the opportunity to take sick days, or you have a really stressful, important job that they frankly need you there during that time, you might not go to the doctor. But the defense is going to use that gap as evidence in their minds that you weren't really injured and that you're faking it.
Yeah, it's not always as easy. It's just like, oh, I got in a car crash and now it's time to go to the doctor.
Yep.
Yeah, especially for those types of injuries that are, obviously, if like you get into an insane car wreck and your leg is like, you could not walk.
Sure. That
would be like, obviously you call the ambulance. I bet you see a lot more of the injuries of stuff that affects people's life, but that they, quote, could keep going.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean their life wasn't affected, that they shouldn't have sought treatment.
That's a really good point. Yeah, the average person who gets injured doesn't want to go to the doctor, right? Like, God bless our doctors, but nobody wants to go to the doctor. We all would rather do other things. And many of us have a tendency to sort of wish things away, right? Like, my neck hurts, but in a few days or a few weeks, it will get better. If there's not blood and gore or a massive head injury or something, a lot of people are just like, I don't want to have to sue this other driver, right? Like, if I'm okay, I want to be okay. I don't need them to pay me money. I'm not out for money on all of this. But the reality is, and this is interesting, this happened because one of my colleagues was hit in a very minor fender bender. He was sideswiped by a driver that ran a red light, kind of a T-bone. And he thought he was fine. And, did what you're supposed to do, exchanged information. His family left the scene. And for now about a month, he's been having headaches, extreme neck pain when he turns a certain way, and these lingering effects from this collision. And he's the last guy that would ever want to file a claim, the last guy that wants to go to the doctor, the last guy that wants to deal with anything litigious, but he's injured. And he didn't even know it at the time. He thought he was going to be okay. And so a lot of times in car accident cases, what we call soft tissue injuries, the effects of it aren't immediately known. And so it takes sometimes a few days or a few weeks even to really know. But again, that's what the insurance will latch on to say, oh, now he or she is faking it and they're just trying to get a payday.
Yeah. But if it's affecting your quality of life. Okay. So a lot of things can be remedied once you get an attorney, but in the first 72 hours, if you think even a little bit of something is different after the accident, you should seek medical attention. You
should always go get checked out. At least in Washington and in most states, there's the emergency room, or so if you're bleeding, you should go to the ER. You should take an ambulance. But if you're not sure, most urgent care centers can get you in an hour or so. And I always advise, I'm like, if you were hit and you're not quite sure, but your muscles maybe feel a little tingly or a little burning, like you just lifted weights or something, you definitely want to go to urgent care and get checked out. And almost always, if you felt even that much, you're going to have some residual pain and discomfort over the next few weeks. And unfortunately, oftentimes it's even worse than that, right? Like you might have headaches, you might have had a concussion or a traumatic brain injury that you didn't even know at the time, right? You got in a collision. Our bodies are fragile. Our bodies are tough. Our bodies are amazing in many ways, but they're also fragile, and you never know what's going on. And so if you get in a car accident, it's worth going to urgent care and just getting checked out just to make sure. It's scary what can happen. My wife and I take that stuff pretty seriously. And, I'm 48, so starting to get a little bit older, and we both paid out of pocket, certainly not inexpensive, but we just paid to have this year. We both did what are called Prenuvo scans, which are basically full body MRIs.
I have been wanting one of those.
Yeah. So for me, it's just peace of mind. So like I did it, and they found a couple things, one of which I already was aware of, a couple other ones that were very minor, just kind of, hey, heads up, you've got degenerative disc disease in my neck, which doesn't really bother me currently. I'd seen it on a previous MRI, but it's something to keep in mind. And so it's like now when I work out, I'm mindful of it. And I also do some additional core and flexibility exercises, just so that knowing that in the next 20, 30 years, it's probably something I'm going to have to deal with, but let's try to get out in front of it.
Yes, I am not a hypochondriac. I say I dabble in hypochondria. I want one of those full body scans. Yep. I don't need it right now.
Yep. No,
but
you're young enough.
I know, and it is expensive. Yeah. But in 10 years, I think I'm gonna get it, because what if I have a freaking tumor?
Yep. Well, and it pisses me off. This is not the topic of today's show.
Yeah, that's okay.
But that Western medicine is so focused on trauma, which we're the best in the world at, trauma care, but the rest of it, our medicine, our mainstream medicine, is focused on curing symptoms or getting people on, pills and medicines that help symptoms of things that we've detected. But it is terrible about preventative medicine.
We don't roll that way.
We don't do it at all. And it pisses me off, right? Because I hear of my friends, and as my family and my friends' families get older, and my father-in-law died from pancreatic cancer, and had he done a Prenuvo scan, within the first 6 to 12 months of that tumor developing, who knows what could have happened. And so we should, and I'm hopeful in time that the insurance companies will realize that it actually saves money to catch these things early and require, or at least, recommend and help offset the cost by having us go in on a yearly basis once you reach a certain age for these types of scans. Because if nothing else, it's nice to have that peace of mind. Yeah. But also, think about it, you catch something early. And the reason Annie and I did it was because a fellow lawyer in the Midwest did it, and he, has the means to do it. And they caught a tumor on I believe it was on his liver, and was able to get that removed. And he flatly says it saved his life.
Yeah, it's so serious. Yeah, I think not just in Western medicine. I just think that's a Western cultural quality that we have, which is treat the symptom, not the issue.
Yep.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. Yep. But especially with your health, you can't play with that shit. It's really serious.
Well said. No, couldn't agree more. I wish everybody in high school and college and beyond was being fed information about the importance of preventative medicine and steps you can take that are reasonable in cost to catch things early. Yeah. So you can not worry about them and also catch them.
I know. Okay, back to my list of questions now that we've just gone off on Western society.
Sure.
Okay, so you're talking to the insurance companies. Are there things that you absolutely should not say to an insurance company?
What you shouldn't do is give a statement without your attorney present, right? Every insurance adjuster is different. And so I always advise, you should give a statement, especially if, you're 100% not at fault. There's nothing to hide from, but don't just get on the phone and start talking to these folks, because insurance companies are companies first and foremost, which means they're for profit. And so they're going to ask questions intended to elicit responses that divest them of liability or try to find a way to decrease the amount of money that they're going to end up having to pay. And so you should talk to your lawyer and then say, yeah, I'm more than happy to give a statement, but I want my lawyer present, or I want my lawyer's okay or blessing before I give that statement. Something like, I'm fine, right? What does that mean, right? people tell me I'm fine. My wife tells me I'm fine when I know she's not fine. My kids say I'm fine. Let's say you get on the phone with an adjuster within a day or two and they say, well, were you injured? And you say, no, I think I'm fine. And then they're going to hold that against you, right? Because it's a recorded interview. And then as symptoms develop over the next few weeks and you start treating those, and then you hire a lawyer and then you file a claim, and then your lawyer's fighting on your behalf and the adjusters are playing back that recording saying, no, Reese is fine. Reese said she was fine right after. And so this injury must have come from somewhere else. And so it's a good opportunity to reset. So I just wouldn't talk to anybody without first talking to a lawyer.
Yeah, because your attorney won't be able to help you avoid issues like that.
Yep. And just clarify, right? Like, so if I were on a call like that and my client says I was fine, I'll say, well, hold on. Was it in the moment you thought you were fine? Were you actually fine? Why did you go seek medical care? And what did the doctors tell you? And then they say, well, yeah, it turns out I wasn't fine, that there was a ongoing thing or a lingering thing or something that was going to manifest in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So it's just clarifying. It's not being untruthful. It's just not using one tiny little phrase and then using that as the backbone of an entire defense to
talking to someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Who's done this before.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you feel that if someone, especially the way the world is now, people post on social media about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
If someone posts on social media about it, how often do you see that can be used against them? Yeah.
Well, not to go off tangent again, but I have removed myself from social media in the last few weeks, and it's the best move I have ever made. I'll tell you. I'm off Instagram. I check Facebook for work purposes at work. I don't have the app on my phone anymore. Took off Twitter, X, and TikTok. And man, it's amazing how much time you lose to that stuff, and you realize it after you take it off. And frankly, how addicted you are to the dopamine you get the charge you get from it, but also how empty it makes you feel at times. But sidestepping that entirely, yes, the defense bar, the insurance adjusters, they will look on your social media. And if you say, I've got, this substantial strain in my back and neck, yet a week later you're water skiing or something, or snow skiing or doing whatever, going on a long hike, like they'll use it against you for sure. And they'll do two things. One, you're not injured. And two, you're a liar. You're claiming this massive injury, but look, it hasn't affected your life. You're still off doing things. Now, there might be a totally reasonable explanation, but yes, you should be mindful of what you post. And we should all be mindful of that all the time in life anyway. But there have been many, many cases where somebody's social media posts have come back to haunt them. Now, at the same time, doing plaintiff's work, sometimes I find something the defense did that helps our case. Mm-hmm. But as a lawyer talking to my clients, I would certainly advise being very cautious about what you post.
Because you absolutely have seen it used against people.
Oh, totally. And I mean, it's the most obvious thing to search, right? And most people's Facebook profiles are public. Instagram, it's not that hard to hide and find your way on there. And then also those posts are what we call discoverable, meaning that if there's a lawsuit, the defense will ask for all the plaintiff's social media posts over the last couple of years. And those usually, they're entitled to that. And so then it's like, they're going to get it and they're going to see if you've erased stuff. And so it's just, you just don't want to post anything that could come back to haunt you.
Okay, now I want you to walk us through a case where someone made an early misstep that seriously complicated their claim.
So I've had a lot of cases like that. Sometimes it's not going to the doctor. And I've had specific cases where it's usually like, I'll say tough guy. It doesn't necessarily mean a man, but there's just people who are tough and they hate doctors, or they just accept that there's pain in life, and they don't get checked out. And then they had a TBI, right? Which is so common in car accidents. You hit your head, sometimes on the window on the side, sometimes you hit the steering wheel, sometimes you don't think you hit anything, but you had whiplash to the point of causing essentially what is a traumatic brain injury. So I've had dozens of those cases, and a month later, they're sitting at their desk and they can't focus on what's on the computer screen, or they're getting these severe headaches. And so I've had a lot of those, right? And that's just violating that first rule of getting checked out. I've had cases of social media posts. I've had cases where people are too nice to the other driver and say, "Oh, I'm fine. Nothing to worry about. I don't even need your information." It's like, I've had cases that are really low impact and seemingly not serious, where then later they're concerned because they're facing these symptoms or dealing with these symptoms. And they're like, "I don't even know who the other driver was because I let him go." Not calling the police, especially in more severe collisions, has come back to haunt me. I've had clients who clearly weren't at fault, but man, a police report outlining the scene, just describing the angle of the vehicles, what lanes they were in, where the cars were hit, where it would have absolutely changed the whole dynamic of the case. You know, a lot of people, not everybody has a car that is spotless, right? People have cars that have dings and bumps and things. And sometimes it's really difficult to tell which part of the broken car is related to the collision we're talking about. So I think probably to answer your question, there's too many instances where people made those mistakes by just not kind of following those basic rules out of the gate. And I have had people talk to adjusters and say things that came back to haunt us as well.
So if we had 3 basic rules, it would be check yourself out.
Yep.
Don't make a statement without attorney.
Yep.
What would the third be?
Probably exchanging information at the scene. You know, at the very least, you can always take a picture of the other driver's license plate. Then we'll be able to track them down, because there's people that will give you fake information. I've had people give fake or false insurance cards because, you know, in Washington, if you get pulled over by a cop, you have to show proof of insurance. And so there's fake ones you can make or buy on the internet that you can show to a police officer, and police officer says, "Okay, it looks like a Progressive insurance card, so I'm not going to give them a ticket for driving with no insurance," because they don't check it.
Yeah.
And so if you get a picture of the license plate, maybe take a picture of their car, your car, kind of the locations, the damage to the vehicles, like at least then you're kind of building the basics of a case. But calling the police, honestly, like, you know, admittedly, they don't respond the way they used to. Before COVID, you could pretty much be assured that if you called 911 and said, "I was just in a car accident," that a state trooper or a police officer would come to the scene in a reasonable amount of time. Nowadays, they may not. So then it becomes kind of your job to take some pictures, maybe even write down a quick little version of what happened, what lane you were in, where you were going, you know, whether you were stopped or rolling or what, if the car's, you know, pulled in to the side of you, you know, just kind of write down a quick description of what happened, because you may not remember it in 2 years when somebody starts asking you questions in a deposition. So you definitely want to look out for yourself in that situation. You weren't at fault, but it's not going to be able to track down other witnesses or people who drove by. And so you need to document everything yourself. So I'd say those are kind of the big 3.
Awesome. Great. Well, is there anything else we need to say before we get off this episode?
I would just say, you know, I just kind of reiterate physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. Those are the most important things. And just go get checked out. Like, you got in an accident, you may not have felt like much, but it's definitely worth it. And you're not doing anybody a disservice by doing that. You know, that's what urgent care is for. And those doctors are trained to notice the symptoms of early neck and back injuries, head injuries. And so just get checked out, and they say you're good. And in the days that go by, nothing else happens, then no problem. That's a good thing, right? That's what those of us want in this world. We want you to recover and be fine. But if there's more to it, you'll be really glad that you got checked out.
Awesome. Well, that concludes this episode of In Session with Casey Arbenz. Stay tuned with us for our next episode, and follow us on social media, and check the show notes for all of our information.
Like and subscribe.
Yes.
Thanks, Reese.